gone and the sun goes down and rises over Brooklyn Bridge. Tomorrow, hours later, I will follow. The judgments of youth. Living with parents. When I was a kid, my dad told me that we would have to start paying rent if we stayed in the house past high school. I think it was past high school. And he gave us some number that we would have to pay. And I hated living at home. I wanted to escape ASAP. I threatened to run away or kill myself if they didn't help me. And I left when I was 17 on foreign exchange to live in England. I came back for about a year, maybe less than a year. I took night classes to finish high school and took day classes at the community college. And I left, I think, around my birthday. So I don't remember when I came back or when I left. I think I was back about a year. And then I went to New York City and stayed for, I think, 4 months or 3 months or something, and then came back for a month, and then went to Arizona, traveled around out there. I think I came back for a few weeks, if not a month, when my grandfather died the year later. I remember coming back for a few weeks when I came back from Oregon before moving to Arkansas with my boyfriend. I remember coming back after South Africa for a few weeks, where my dad had come out to my dad as gay on the phone from South Africa, and he said I was dead to him and he didn't have a son, so he pretended I didn't exist. I think I was only here for a few weeks. My sister's high school graduation. And then I don't think I came back for 3 years. I think that I visited my mom in California when she was visiting my brother. Or maybe it was around that time that we went to Brazil together. Or no, I must have gone to Brazil with her after I'd kind of made up with my dad. Yeah, because I came back as I drove across the country and visited them when I had the van. And I think that visit in 2003 was the last time I spent weeks here. I think every visit after that was a few days. It was around 2006, though, that a mentor told me the perfect length of time for a visit with your family is 3 days, because both of you wish it could have lasted longer. It's enough time to spend time and get out before the fish smells bad or you're triggering and sick of each other. So I think after that, I would, from about 2004 or 5 or 6, somewhere around then, I averaged seeing my family every other year, sometimes more, sometimes less. Like sometimes I'd see them every year, sometimes it would be like 2 years. But I'd generally spend a couple days, 3 days, 4 days with them and leave. I didn't like them. I loved them. They were my family, but I didn't like them. I had worked really hard to stop hating my father, and that worked, but then he disowned me for being gay. And then I worked really hard to build up a relationship with him, like a human relationship, multifaceted human relationship. And that worked pretty well, but then he disowned me for finding naked pictures of me on the internet when he was bragging to some friends of his that I was a model, and he told them my internet name, Dominic Vine, and one of his friends Googled it and said, "Is this your son?" And it was all these pictures of me naked, although not sexually. I think if you Google, they have some kind of safe filter. But it was just all these pages and pages of naked pictures of me in the forest. At that time, I was prolific on the internet in that way, taggable, I guess. And then my dad's an asshole, and his friends tend to be assholes as well. His asshole friend told all of his other friends at a gathering of like 16 men up at his cabin to Google my name and pull up different pictures and taunt my dad with naked pictures of me on their cell phones. At least that's the way he portrayed the story to me. So he disowned me again, which again, I understand that's a traumatic experience when you're an asshole and your friends are assholes and they're mocking you for your son being naked in nature on the internet. But he could have also just done his homework and not told them the internet name that I use. It's different than my family name. Or he could have been like, yeah, that's just my son. That's how he is. He enjoys it. It's fine. But that's not what happened. Anyway, family. As I said in one of the talks I did recently, I never hated my mother. I mean, we all hate everyone, ourselves included, even though we love them. I always loved my mother. There was definitely years where I didn't love my father, except in a begrudging, obligatory way. I love him because he's my father, but he's a fucking asshole. And after but I got to a point where I had a lot of compassion and took time to get to know him and love him. And then he disowned me again. And after that last one, I was like, this guy is just what he is. He's like a beaten dog tied to a chain and neglected and left in the yard, and you can be as kind as you want to it, and you can feed it and pet it, and every once in a while it's going to snarl and bite you just because that's what it is. You can't expect it not to do that. Here's a boy I met in 2001. 2003. I think he was 18 at the time. Or 21, maybe he just turned 21. I don't remember now. Whatever, I thought of him as a boy. I quickly began to call him my little brother. We had a lot of similarities. He was the same age as my sister, born less than a week, different than her. Same year, right? And one of the problems, and again, he was young, but one of the problems I thought he had, I'm making a problem out of anything, is just a lack of perspective, honestly, I think, but this time I had a problem with him living with his parents. I think I have, for a long time, held a judgment about adult people living with their parents, and there are people I know who have lived with their parents till their parents died. Like, they never got a wife or they never moved out. And I've had massage clients that have told me those stories. I've certainly had lovers that have told me those stories, that's just their... Lived with my mom till she died. Nope, never had a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I know a lot of men who moved out and had a life of their own and then moved back in to take care of their parents and lived with them for like 20 years until they died. This boy that I met in 2003, he had a habit of living with his parents and then meeting some guy on the internet. I think he started this when he was 16, and he would go live with his daddy bear somewhere, get sick of living with the daddy bear, go back and live with his parents, then find a new daddy bear to go live with, and then get sick of living with the daddy bear, move back in with his parents. And I saw that as a problem. Some of these other men that I've met who lived with their parents till they died, as I matured, I saw that not as much of a problem, but just as like, well, that's something I don't want to do. There was a position I held for a long time that my brother had a wife and kids, so he was not going to be the one to take care of my parents because he'd be too busy taking care of his kids. And my sister doesn't have kids. She has dogs. She's had some boyfriends, but she hasn't gotten married. So I figured, well, my sister lives close to my parents, and unfortunately, she will be the one who takes care of my parents, and I will not be a good caretaker for my parents for various reasons, so I'm not going to do that, but I'll visit them, and it'll be nice for me to visit them and be in touch with them. And I guess, as I said, as I've matured, I have seen people living with their parents not as a problem, but just a life choice, just the way they are, and I'm thinking, well, I never really want to do that. Now, when I came back to Indiana in 2019, I had been for 2 or 3 years, I had been thinking of how it would be an interesting experience to spend time with my family for 3 months. And the initial plan was to spend a month with each of them. That is to say, my sister lived separately in Bloomington. Bloomington's the college town. My sister and brother went to college here. I never went to college, so I didn't go to college here. And I thought it'd be cool to live there because there's hills and forests and there's lots of fun stuff to do and good food to eat, music and performances. So I thought I'll spend a month with my sister and just see what her life is like, and her dogs and her bowling league and a pool league. She played pool. She was in a pool league. All that stuff because of COVID, things have yet to get totally spun back up. And then I was going to spend a month staying with my parents at the house in Zionsville that I lived in from 10 to 17. And then I was going to spend a month living with my brother and his wife and kids because they had a guest room. But my brother's guest room got infected by squirrels that died and rotted in the walls, and they stopped using that room. My sister, my dad, she was working in an annex for my dad's company, and he decided to close her annex and force her to come and work at his lab up in Zionsville. So she basically had moved back in with my parents by the time that I came here to spend time with them. So I ended up spending that time with my parents in Zionsville, and my sister was there, and I would spend a week every month at my brother's house. And I found out, and I spent not what I expected the 3 months, but I ended up spending 4 months, and I felt it was very successful. I felt like it was a lovely experience in that I was able to my mother turned 70 that year, so I was in this generous state of like, happy birthday, Mom, what can I do to make this a nice experience for you? I had planned a trip that the whole family was going to go to Sedona, but nobody wanted to do it. My mom wanted to do it. My mom really wanted her whole family, all of her children and her grandchildren together in Sedona. Sedona is one of her favorite places. She finds it so beautiful, but nobody could make time. So fuck that. Didn't happen. So I just stayed in Indiana. And I was very pleased that a lot of the stuff that made me hate being here when I was younger, I could let it go. I would see strip malls and subdivisions and people being ostentatiously wealthy and snooty and whatever, and just be like, doesn't matter. I don't have to cling to it. I could feel it piss me off or trigger me and just be like, I can let it go. It's okay. And then it no longer had power over me once after the initial pinch, and I let it go. All the little pinches afterwards were even slighter and subtler and just didn't matter. I had already, greeted them and let them go. And similarly, a lot of the dynamics that used to annoy me about my parents stopped triggering me and let me go. One of the weird things that happened was visiting my brother. I got cold sores every time I would visit my brother, and then that extended as these last few years of being with my parents to I'm getting cold sores often being with my parents. I had cold sores a lot as a teenager, and so I guess it's some kind of weird ambient stress I'm picking up that I'm not dealing with or releasing or something. But I've noticed specifically this year, because this is the third year that I've spent multiple months with my family. I ended up spending 4 months in 2019 and 4.5, not yet 5 months in 2020. And this year I spent most of March here in Indiana, all of April, most of April I was in New York, and so May and June, July, August, September, October, I expect to be here, mostly here, although I have thought of taking trips to other places. I'm not sure if I will. And there's a part of me that loves the comfort of it. I have my own room with a TV with video games. I can watch movies in there. Fix the internet, it's a little faster. There's endless food, fresh eggs, great fresh vegetables, greens from the yard. I had a very specific sense in 2019 that I did not want any kind of friends or lovers here. I didn't want anything holding me here at all except my family. And in 2020, I got some regular fuck buddies, but they were, closeted married guys, so that also wasn't sticky, really. It was nice to have that connection, but it wasn't anything, besides that moment. And this year I noticed that I'm craving companions, friendship, more than fuck buddies, somebody I can cuddle with. And I guess that's what's triggering this little talk, is that when I talk to people and I explain to them I'm living with my parents, I feel the judgments of my youth being like, oh, you're living with your parents, you're 43-year-old living with your parents. And one of the things I learned in 2017 when I went out to Oregon for the solar eclipse was I had come to believe that I was a New Yorker because I was living in New York. And when I was out in Oregon, I said, oh, you're not a New Yorker, you're a traveler, and New York is just some place that you've been for a while, and you can leave it. And it felt such a relief. And indeed, I was able to return back to New York after a while, get rid of all my stuff, and just leave it. All identities can be useful and can be prisons, right? But I have a sense of understanding that I'm a traveler. I'm a Hoosier. I was born here, but my parents aren't Hoosiers, and I don't have a network of family here that has anything older than us moving here randomly, or my dad moving here before I was born. So there isn't a big network of Hoosierness. Of we don't say "wash your hands." I can't even do an Indiana Hoosier country accent. I can't even do it very well. I can say "wash." They say "wash" here. Wash your hands. I don't feel particularly attached to this place, and I no longer feel repelled by it. And I know that 2019 it felt very temporary. 2020 it felt much more pressure because of the pandemic story. You couldn't go out and do other things, so there was some yearning to be other places. This year, so far, I don't even have yearning, but that's one of the reasons I did this birthday project, was because I had settled into this type of comfort of just eating a lot of Costco food and fresh eggs and vegetables and frozen dinners and this Midwestern food. My mom makes a lot of really lovely food too, but it's just a lot more food than I would usually eat when I lived alone. And I'd settled into this comfort of just watching lots of television and playing video games and doing puzzles and entertaining my parents, or at least my mother. My father, much less interaction. I thought, well, I need to mix that up a little bit, and I've been kind of dreaming about oh yeah, remember you're a traveler, where are you going to go this winter? I don't want to spend a winter here in Indiana. I noticed that part of my impulse back. I came back at the beginning of this year, and it was my dad's 70th birthday. And I was like, okay, so for your 70th birthday, Dad, we're going to clean the house. We're going to get rid of all of the clutter, because they're not like bad hoarders, but they have way too much stuff, and there's a lot of clutter, like stacks of stuff that's never been dealt with. And when I was here in 2019, we threw away like 3 couches, a bunch of different chairs. We made multiple trips to the dump, threw out tons of old stuff. So I came back with that energy at the beginning of this year, that I'm like, okay, let's clean the house, let's get rid of stuff. And my dad did not. He said yes to it, but he didn't say yes in his actions. His actions said no. His words said yes, his actions said no. He's always too busy. He can't do that right now. I can't make a schedule right now. I can't make a date for that. I can't make a plan. Yes, we'll do that later. So it's not happening. And that gave me the clarity of noticing that I had the impulse to get rid of this house. When my dad's fantasy is that he's going to sell this house and move to his house in Michigan, and my mom doesn't want to live there, so she would find somewhere else to live. Some of my earliest yearnings was to get those two separated. And my sister got a job offer in Chicago, and I was just like, yeah, get the hell out of Bloomington, get out of Indiana. It'd be so great if I never have to go back to Indiana again. So I was able to notice that impulse in me to try to push that. It's not happening. So, I'm thinking of the future now. I'm noticing the judgment of living with your parents, and noticing the comfort. I'm not paying rent. So any of the money that I make, I'm just saving. And it felt so weird to me over the last month that I was working. I was getting lots of massage clients. It was great. And I was kind of raking in the dough, and I hadn't made money most of last year, so it felt so good to make money. But I'm also not spending a lot of money. I mean, I've spent some stupid money on stupid shit from Amazon, as we all do. I bought, the Oculus VR headset, which is fun, and I bought some games on there, and bought some Nintendo games. Even though I haven't played any video games for the last month, because I've been doing these projects instead, and all of my waste time has it's not been video games. It's been meditation and yoga and resting and gardening and writing and talking and trying to edit and stuff like that, which is great. But anyway, that's what I spent my money on. And I got to the point earlier June, that I'm like, I have all this money and I'm not sure what to do with it. Maybe I should invest it in some cryptocurrency. And of course the cryptocurrency market started tanking. So it was like, okay, well, I just put a few massages worth, that's the way I think in chunks of money, a few massages worth of money into Ethereum and Bitcoin and Doggy. What will that happen? I don't know. I was trying to buy cummies, but it was too complicated. Lost interest. But yeah, I've been, playing with the when the parents become dependent, who's going to be their caretakers? I don't want to be their caretakers. Yet I've also come into a frame of mind in recent years that I've always been someone who felt like I had some obligation to the world, not even to society, but to the world, to do something good for something. And I've looked at it and seen it as a messiah complex or a martyr complex and all this shit, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. And in the spiritual work I've done and the enlightenment I've achieved, whatever you want to call it, I understand that the greatest thing you can do with your time is to help other people. So the ability to help random people, again, like some random person who I've never met may be watching this and may get something useful out of it, or any of the things I've written or recorded over the years. And I like that. Being in Indiana, helping my parents and helping my sister, my brother, in little physical ways of cleaning or cooking or giving them massages, or listening to them or telling them things. That's useful helping. All the people I give massages to here, obviously I'm serving them, and a lot of it's candy, but I'm also giving them medicine. And I understand that that's helping people, and that's generally the help I've done most of my life. Although I've fantasized about this next phase of my life being a teacher, the more that I've seen people doing teachers, it's always trying to sell people stuff that I don't believe in. Like, you could be happier all the time, or you could never be in pain again. Sickness could be optional if you take the right herb. Like, I don't even believe in that shit. Like, life is just going on, and I do think you can be happier if you choose to be happier, and then the rituals of your day are what remind you to choose to be happy versus choosing to make everything a problem and be neurotic and be upset, and But I have seen enough people that I don't think like Buddhism is the way for you, or Taoism is the way for you, or yoga is the way for you, or Christianity. I always say to my mom, have you heard the good news, sister? I think everybody has a different path, and you can find peace staring at the corn or listening to the birds chirping. So I think of running off in the winter. I have money saved. I can go to Mexico or Thailand or someplace I've never been, like Antarctica, Morocco. Korea, correlevant out green, the deep blue water so, the water on so, the water on sand, the water on concrete. Andalusian, red, yellow, black car, white light. I don't remember all the words to that. Do you know what I'm quoting? That was a song. I see every style of life is as valid as any other at this point. Any place to be is as valid as any other, as ripe for suffering or peace or happiness. Yet when we tell the story of our lives, we have judgment about the choices we make. Well, I'm working at McDonald's. I remember my friend Leo always said, well, Dominic, you're trying to choose if you're going to go to Mongolia or travel around hot spring resorts in Colorado. Most people have to choose if they're going to work at McDonald's or Burger King, so recognize the goodness of your life. So I'm grateful. Where should I spend the winter? I'm grateful to spend time with my family. I certainly appreciate the love. I guess I can dovetail this talk into something I've probably talked about before, but would mention in this that my life in New York was almost all gay people, almost all homosexual men, and even most of the women I interacted with were lesbians. And I just very rarely interacted with what might be called straight, heteronormative, mainstream culture, just hardly at all for a decade. When I started traveling again, I was like, oh yeah, most of the people in the world are straight and believe in normal. Oh, great, okay. I mean, a lot of the people I knew in New York, the gay people believed in normal as well, but do you believe in normal? Stop it. And that gives me a certain type of happiness and freedom to just be with gay men all the time. And when I left New York, what I ended up finding myself in, what is often very attracted to me, especially with my long hair, big bearded manifestation, is the world of healers, astrologers, psychics, herbalists, yoga, massage, but those are mostly straight people, and that's like another tribe that I can very much resonate with. And I used to dance between the two a lot more in my travels, like, oh, I'm hanging out with a bunch of gay men now, and now I'm hanging out with these like healery straight yoga kids. And I had hoped the Radical Fairies would be more of a blend of that, and it kind of was, but it's funny that all I can think of with the Radical Fairies is how disappointed I am with that at this point, as opposed to being like, oh, I loved them once. Oh, Radical Fairies, I loved them once. Yeah, so I did. That's nice. I'll remember that. But in these recent years, part of what drew me back to my family was understanding that there's a love we have with our family, even if we hate them. There's a love we have with them that is unique to any other type of dynamic. So it's very different than how I got there's a different type of freedom, a different type of comfort, a different type of nourishment than I got with these other tribes of the gay men or the healery, hippie traveling kids. And so I've been enjoying that. And I suppose, like, I might do this for many more years of coming and spending the summers or the autumn or the spring or some block of time with the family and enjoy them. Especially my brother has a niece and nephew, so it's fun to be the gay uncle with them. And, there's definitely an ego trip in my head of hoping I can be useful to them some way as they grow up, that they can talk to me as someone that they have that weird family connection with. Like, here's this person that I wouldn't have anyone in my life like him at all, except he's my uncle, so I can call him. I don't know if they will, but I like being available to that, to giving them some kind of relationship with me so they have that option. Because I am different than the rest of their family, but I am their family. So I don't know, I've been really appreciating that family dynamic and, want to respect it and not feel that weird pressure of the judgment of youth that, oh, you're living with your family at the age of 43. And I guess I've noticed that when I've talked to gay people online, that they'll be like, oh, are you married to a woman or something? I'm like, no, I live with my parents. And they're like, oh, you live with your parents? I'm like, or that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling I live with my parents. And I'm still mostly free. I just am who I am. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, they can't tell me not to do things, but I can not do things because I don't want to disturb them, because I respect who they are. But still, every relationship brings its own limitations and restraints and freedoms and supports. And that's enough right now, is to think of these things. Staying with family. I do feel so weird in that I don't think I would ever choose to own all these things and have a house in a neighborhood and a car and a job, where I'd be working. I don't think I would ever choose to do those things, and this is the life they have, and so I do feel like an alien, but I've always felt an alien in my family, so that discrepancy doesn't feel as painful as it once did. But the suffering they endure because of the life they live in, I sometimes feel bad because I'm just like, yeah, I threw that baby out with the bathwater. I can't even, I don't live anything like that. But being here in Indiana does make me think like, oh, maybe I should get a job at a corporation or something. But when I've talked with some of the gay men I've met up with here, either clients or the few fuck buddies I've tried to connect with, and I listen to them, they start using words like supervisor or branch manager, director or whatever. I'm just like, my eyes glaze over and I'm like, I don't even know how I could exist in that reality. I would just, so yeah, I have no idea what future will hold for me. I was listening to Ram Dass talking about conscious aging today, and he said that in India they have this idea that from like 0 to 20, you're a student. From 20 to 40, you're a householder raising your family. From 40 to 60, you're studying spirituality. And from 60 on, you're a sannyasi. You renounce the world and, just go out and live a spiritual life till you die. And when I was younger, people always asked me, like, what's your retirement plan? And that's what I said to them. I was like, well, I'll just go live in a cave until I die, or I'll be a part in an ashram somewhere, or people will think I'm a guru and I'll teach them things because I'm an old guy who has studied this my whole life. But I don't have to worry about that now because that's not what's happening. But it's very different than what I think that most of the people I know in the world are worrying about, what they think is important. And every once in a while when I touch onto that reality, the reality I was born in, the reality of my people, most of my friends, most of the people I have sex with, of like having a job and a retirement and a house, I'm just like, that feels terrible. I don't know what to do with that. So I just have to let it go. I guess that's enough for now. 33 minutes is good. I got to see what my sister's doing. She's getting ready to leave. Going away for a vacation. Are you on vacation? Am I on vacation? Look, I'm on vacation. A lifetime of vacation. Let's take that vacation anyway. Have a good time, kids. Happy Independence Day. Happy Interdependence Day. Love you.